2017. Page 1899. One nine zero zero. One nine zero one. One nine zero two. One nine zero three. One nine zero four. One nine zero five. One nine zero six. One nine zero seven. One nine zero eight. 1908, 1909. Former Governor, Ranking Senator Shaba Mudulafiaji, Kwara North.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. President. My distinguished colleagues, I rise to move that the votes and proceedings of Tuesday, 10th May 2017 be approved. I so move.
Former Governor Senator Theodore Oji, Abia Central.
Your Excellency, Senate President, it's not easy to be a governor. Your Excellency, Senate President, my very distinguished colleagues, my name is Senator T.A. Oji Ochen. I represent the good people of Abia Central worldwide. I move, I rise to move. I second the motion already moved by my colleague, former governor. Yes, I so second.
Thank you, distinguished Senator. Okay, we will expand today to also aspiring governors. Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that the votes and proceedings of Tuesday, 16th May 2017 be hereby approved, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Votes and proceedings of Tuesday, 16th May 2017 is hereby approved. Announcement. This is to inform members of the Northern Senators Forum that the meeting of its members shall take place as scheduled hereunder, Thursday, 18th May 2017. Venue, Conference Room 231, second floor, New Senate Wing. Time 2 p.m. Signed by Senator Abla Adamu, Chairman. Letter from Senator Dino Milai, distinguished senators, letter of appreciation. I write to express my profound gratitude to Your Excellency and my distinguished colleagues for honoring my invitation to the official book presentation and launching of my book, Antidotes for Corruption, The Nigerian Story. It is my most sincere duty to appreciate my boss, the President of the Senate, for his invaluable encouragement and input and for making the event a reality. It is also indeed my pleasure to express my appreciation to all my dear colleagues, distinguished senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, for their overwhelming presence and support. Those that could not make it expressed their solidarity and goodwill towards the success of the event. This is a quick note to let you know that all you all deserve my greatest thanks. Thank you. Yours sincerely, Senator Dino Milai. Distinguished colleagues, let me recognize in our gallery our colleagues from the ECOWAS Parliament who this morning are here with us in the Senate. You are welcome to the Senate. It's our pleasure to have you here with us. We wish you a fruitful observation of our Senate proceedings, and thank you for coming. Please, you may sit down. Thank you so much. Leader of the Senate. Let me take petitions first. Senator Andy Uba.
Mr. President, most distinguished colleagues, my name is Senator Andy Uba, representing Anambra South Senatorial Zone. Mr. President, I have two petitions from my constituents. One is for wrongful termination. One is from Ms. Monica Okafor by National Biotechnology Development Agency. was asked to go on a study leave. By the time she came back, they terminated her. Then the second one is from Mrs. Okoli Stella Uchenna from Nnamdi Azikiwe Technology Teaching Hospital, Nnewi. She was asked to go on a study leave. By the time she came back, her appointment was terminated. Mr. President, can I lay the petition?
Come and lay the petition. Petitions here, Senator Oji. One second, Senator Oji. Petitions referred to ethics and privileges. Report back in 2 weeks. Yes, Senator Oji.
Your Excellency, Senate President, my distinguished colleagues, my name is T.A. Oji Ochendo, Abia Central. Your Excellency, I have a petition from one of my constituents, a policeman who has been on suspension for 15 years because of an alleged offense. The man is so tired of staying at home that I petitioned you, the Senate, to intervene for the police to either retire him or recall him. It is not encumbered by any legal process. I therefore request that I come and lay the petition.
Yes, come and lay the petition. The petition is referred to ethics and privileges. Report back in 2 weeks. Point of order. Yes, Senator Sikibo.
Thank you, sir. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, I am Senator George Thompson Sekibo. I am coming under Order 43, 46, and 77. I will not read 46 and 47, but I will read 43. By the indulgence of the Senate and the leave of the President of the Senate, the Senator may make personal explanation, although there be no question before the Senate. But no controversial matter may be brought forward, nor may debate arise upon the explanation. The terms of the proposed statement shall be submitted in detail to the President of the Senate when his leave to make it is sought. Mr. President, order. No, President is very busy. I want to make a decision.
Go ahead, Senator Sekibo.
I quoted Order 46 and 77, which gave us the process of giving notices on bills and on motions.
Right, Honorable.
This morning, I saw here 10 bills that will go through their second reading. I think that if we follow the procedures in 46 and maybe 77, we ought to have been notified on these bills. So let me read 46. Unless the rules otherwise direct, notice shall be given of any motion or amendment which is proposed to be moved, with the exception of the following. The following that they talk about are the one that notices shall not be brought forward. But with the exception of them, all other ones, notice must come using the appropriate channels, so that members shall be aware of the motion that is coming and prepare for it. Order 77. 1. Order. Notice of presentation of a government bill shall be given by publication of the provisions proposed to be embodied in such bill in an issue of the Official Gazette or National Assembly Journal, of which a copy shall have been sent to every senator. Mr. President, for bill we have two processes. After this is done, then we are giving weekly notice papers or monthly notice papers so that people can prepare for their debate robustly. But in most cases, you just come here and then see an attempt to debate. We might debate it, but I think that we are not going to get the best out of the senators. So I want to pray that the Rules and Business Committee should do their work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, then. Thank you, but let me just correct you that one of the things that the Rules and Business have been doing is that most of this have been sent also by notice on soft copies. And that has been the practice of the, yes, they've been doing that. Maybe you are not yet gone digital, but they've been doing that. Yeah, we know you have to move away from analog. They've been sending the notice papers ahead of time. And some of these bills actually were on other papers that we actually stood down. But I take note of what you said, and I'm sure, okay, Baba Kaka is not here. I would also call him and we'll look into that matter. Yeah, point of order, Senator Dinolai.
Mr. President, my very respected colleagues, my name is Dino Melaye, Kogi West, author anti-dote for corruption. Mr. President, this morning I draw celestial inspiration from Order 43 of our standing rules.
Go ahead and read, yeah.
A senator may make a personal explanation, although there may be no question before the Senate, but no controversial matter may be brought forward, nor debate arise upon the explanation. The time of the proposed statement shall be submitted in detail to the President of the Senate when his leave to make it is sought. Mr. President, my respected colleagues, if you speak the truth, you die. If you lie, you die. I, Dino Melaye, I have chosen to speak the truth and die. Mr. President, when President Muhammadu Buhari took over power at exactly 12:04 hours of the 29th of May 2015, what my party and the President promised Nigerians is absolute respect for the rule of law and also to combat the monster called corruption. Mr. President, this morning I want to bring to the attention of this very historic chamber, quoting from the National Lottery Act 2015, specifically Section 8(1) of that Act. By the indulgence of Mr. President, I appeal to read. 8(1) of the Lottery Act stipulates as follows. There shall be for the Commission a Director General, whom shall A, be appointed by the President subject to the confirmation of the Senate. I repeat, be appointed by the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria subject to the confirmation of the Senate. It is sad to note this morning that a new Director General of the National Lottery Commission has not only been appointed by Mr. President, he has resumed office and have started signing documents and carrying out the functions of the office of the Director General of the National Lottery Commission without referral or confirmation of the Nigerian Senate. Mr. President, this country is not a banana republic, and the executive arm of government cannot choose which law to obey and the one not to obey. As I speak to you this morning, we have before this chamber confirmation for the chairman of the Electric Regulation Commission. We have a from Mr. President for the confirmation of the board of CBN. We heard from the President confirmation for the board of NDDC. We have a request from the President for the confirmation of the board of NDIC and some others. Why will there be selective respect for the rule of law? Rule of law, there must be a totalitarian approach. Mr. President, the truth has no volume. It has no volume. We are here working and speaking the truth. The same truth was spoken by the Senate, President of the Senate, and the Speaker of the House of Reps just 2 days ago during the launching of a book. But the response we got to an articulated approach to fighting corruption.
Dino, stick to the, you see, we have come on personal explanation, so.
So, Mr. President, at the end of the day, the rule of law must be respected. It is safer to be loyal to the people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria than to be afraid of the wrath of EFCC or the executive. The truth is the truth, and this chamber must stand on the truth, and the rule of law must be respected, and we must communicate this misbehavior and rascality to those concerned. The truth has no volume. Mr. President, I have spoken.
Distinguished colleagues, as you know by rules, Sandina has come by personal explanation. As such, it cannot be debated. But the issues are very, very weighty. There are issues that border on constitution, there are issues that border on the rule of law, and also borders on our democracy and how we practice it. They're very weighty issues. There are two things we can do, whether we come by motion and we debate it, or we just refer this matter to the leader to investigate and take it up. Because the matters are very clear. I mean, we have to first check that truly this gentleman has decided on his own to disregard the law and resume. And if that's what he's done, I'm sure when that attention is brought to him, he will stop that nonsense and wait to confirmation. And which is what we will have concluded anyway with the debate. So I think our appeal that let the leader take this issue up, confirm whether what Senator Dino has said is the truth. The law which I have here is very, very clear, and ensure that we seem to be doing the right thing, and that the gentleman should wait until his confirmation before resuming. Leader of the Senate. Point of order. Yeah, Senator Basiakwan.
Thank you, Mr. President. My distinguished and respected colleagues, Mr. President, I come under Order 43, and with your permission, may I please read?
Go ahead.
By the indulgence of the Senate and the leave of the President of the Senate, a senator may make a personal explanation, although there will be no question before the Senate. But no controversial matter may be brought forward, nor may debate arise upon the explanation. The terms of the proposed statement shall be submitted in detail to the President of the Senate when his leave to make is sought. Mr. President, my respected colleagues, in recent time, Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Gas, upstream and downstream, have received several complaints and petitions by the public on the proposed Ajaokuta, Abuja, Kaduna, and Kano gas pipeline by the NNPC. Mr. President, this gas pipeline is to complement the 418 kilometers, 36-inch pipeline from Obiogbo, Umuahia, Enugu to Ajaokuta, and is supposed to take now from Ajaokuta, Abuja, Kaduna, and Kano to supply gas in northern parts of this country.
The importance of this project need not be overemphasized, Mr. President, in line with the diversification policy of the present administration. Mr. President, from our initial investigation, the cost of this project as we speak is about $3 billion. And the project is to be undertaken through the public-private partnership. We believe that, and even Mr. President, you have drawn my attention to this project a couple of days ago. I want to solicit the patience of our colleagues and Nigerians that the Joint Committee on Petroleum Resources, Mr. President, will ensure that the interest of Nigerians in line with their medium-term expenditure framework and in line with the vision of this country is achieved and is protected. We will engage the NNPC, Mr. President, and will definitely report back to the Senate because we know that on the basis of what we have seen so far, Mr. President, by the time you look at the cost of financing, this project might be in the region of about $5 billion. We want to assure Nigerians that the Joint Committee will ensure that the interest and the commitment of the present administration is not jeopardized in whatever disguise. So I want to bring that to the notice of the Senate, Mr. President, that we should be given much time to engage the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC, to ensure that this project meets the yearnings and the aspirations of all Nigerians. I thank you, Mr. President. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Senator Basayapan. Yeah, again, you came under 43, but I too have received a lot of complaints on this issue, and I think your committee needs to look into it and be able to report back to us to ensure that a project of this magnitude, to ensure that there's due process and that it is not that we will have a cost that will be far higher than what should be expected. So we expect your report back as soon as possible so the matter can be debated and contributed by, and contribution from other members of the Senate. I thank you. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished and respected colleagues, the first business of the day is the presentation of the Conference Committee report on the Electronic Transaction Bill 2017. Mr. President, you may wish to invite Senator Buhari Abdul Fattah, Chairman of the committee, to move the motion for the Senate to receive the report.
Senator Buhari Abdul Fattah, or you're not?
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleague. Buhari Abdul Fattah, or you're not? I move that the Senate do receive the report of the Conference Committee on the Electronic Transaction Bill 2017 SB 15. I so move.
Senator Peter Wabush, Delta North.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Senator Peter Wabush, Delta North. I rise to second the motion that the Senate do receive the report of the Conference Committee on Electronic Transactions. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that the Senate do receive the report of the Conference Committee on Electronic Transaction Bill 2017 SB 15, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Abdul Fattah, come and lay the report, please. Leader of the Senate.
Yeah. Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the first order of the day is a motion standing in my name and will be presented by the Deputy Leader on the non-submission of the 2017 budget by public corporations in violation of the Fiscal Responsibility Act 2007. Mr. President, you may wish to invite Senator Balana Allah, the Deputy Leader, to move the motion.
Senator Balana Allah.
Mr. President and my distinguished colleagues, my leader having referred to me in my name, let me seize this opportunity to reiterate the fact that I am Senator Balai Binala, KB South, and the Deputy Senate Leader. Yes. My distinguished colleagues, with your permission yesterday, I sought to move this motion that the Senate is worried about the non-submission of the 2017 budget proposal by statutory corporations to the National Assembly. And the Senate knows that Section 21(1) and 2 and 3 of the Physical Responsibility Act stipulates, and I quote, "The government, corporation, and agencies and government-owned companies listed in the schedule to this Act, in this Act referred to as the corporations, shall, not later than 6 months from the commencement of this Act, and for every 3 financial years thereafter, and not later than the end of the second quarter of every year, cause to be prepared and submitted to the Minister their scheduled estimate of revenue and expenditure for the next 3 financial years." Subsection 2 says, "Each of the bodies referred to in Section 1 of this section shall submit to the Minister not later than the end of August in each financial year." And A of it says, "An annual budget derived from the estimate submitted in pursuance of Section 1 of this section." And B, "Projected operating surpluses, which shall be prepared in line with acceptable accounting practice." Section 3 says, "The Minister shall cause the estimate submitted in pursuance of Section 2 of this section to be attached as part of the draft appropriation bill to be submitted to the National Assembly by the President." The Senate observes that non-compliance with the provision of the Physical Responsibility Act constitutes abuse of power and economic sabotage aimed at frustrating the current economic measures being taken by the present administration to address the economic recession. Aware that the absence of penalties in the provision of the Physical Responsibility Act may have emboldened and encouraged the perpetrators of this act, and concerned that the Physical Responsibility Commission is failing in its responsibility through compliance in the execution of its mandate. And accordingly, the Senate resolves to urge the ministers of the concerned agencies as a matter of urgency to submit their budget to the National Assembly in accordance with the provision of Section 21 of the Physical Responsibility Act. Mr. President, I wish to withdraw Prayer 2 and ask that we call on the Committee on Finance to ensure compliance based on Prayer 3, sir. Now, distinguished colleagues, I have received a very funny argument that parastatals were not in receipt of the 2016 appropriation. And I laugh. Throughout the length and breadth of Section 21 of the provision of the Physical Responsibility Act, there is no place where this law made it a condition precedent for you to receive the last year's appropriation before you submit that one. And that is why 16 and 17 are distinct and distinguishable numerically. I'm therefore amazed that those who have chosen to violate the laws of this land will be allowed to go scot-free by this Senate. I think we will not allow that under this dispensation. We have always said that our commitment to provide the necessary cooperation to this government in the fight against corruption is total, and it's 100 over 100. And the only way we can do it, and I keep on saying, the only way we can do it is that we must target frontally the abuse of power and misuse of power by those who occupy public office. And the way to do it is to ensure that each and every person who has been vested with the responsibility under this government is only allowed to act under the provision of our Constitution and the law. Don't forget, my colleagues, the rules of engagement between us and those who elected us into this office is that we will uphold, protect, and defend the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and the law. This is the rule of engagement. So we have a very frontal responsibility to ensure that every person occupying public office, from whose public money is being used to pay his salaries, allowances, and is made to conform with democratic tenets of following the rule of law. I'm therefore of the opinion that this is a very straightforward matter and that my colleagues will see the wisdom in ensuring that we observe the rules of engagement between us and those who elected us into this very exalted position of distinguished senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And this is my submission. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Senate President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very distinguished colleagues. I would like to second this motion. And doing so, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, let me emphasize that this matter is quite serious. It is serious because the matter in question is not only an infraction of the Fiscal Responsibility Act of 2007, it is also an affront to our Constitution, which was what upheld. Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, I seek your permission to read Section 1.1 of the Constitution, again, Section 80, 2, 3, and 4 of the Constitution, to emphasize this point. Mr. President, if I have your permission.
Let's go ahead.
This Constitution is supreme, and its provisions shall have binding force on all authorities and persons throughout the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And it goes further in Section 82 to say that no money shall be withdrawn from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation except to meet the expenditure that is charged upon the fund by this Constitution, or where the issue of those monies has been authorized by an appropriation act, supplementary appropriation act, or an act passed in pursuance of Section 81 of this Constitution. 83. No money shall be withdrawn from any public fund of the Federation other than the Consolidated Revenue Fund of this Federation unless the issue of those monies has been authorized by an act of National Assembly. And finally, no money shall be withdrawn from the Consolidated Revenue Fund or any other public fund of the Federation except in the manner prescribed by the National Assembly. So it's not just the amount, but also the manner that is prescribed by this National Assembly. Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, we are here talking about responsibility of governance. There cannot be any higher responsibility than fiscal responsibility, because that is the beginning of all evils. We must begin to ensure that we live by the laws we make for ourselves. If we say that ministers are supposed to send the estimates of various agencies under them with the appropriation out of each year, that has to be done. I recall, Mr. President, that in 2016, our President, General Muhammad Buhari, in 2016, sent to this National Assembly the appropriation act for that year together with those estimates. So at a loss, why in 2017, the ministers found it impossible to accompany the same appropriation act of 2017 with those estimates of the agencies under them. We cannot be going forth and back. So I believe that this is time for us to insist under Section 88 that gives us power of oversight, that this has to be done. We make laws here for the good governance of this country, and that is exactly what we have to insist. So I believe that time has come when we are going to insist that all agencies should stop the expenditure of public funds unless it's appropriated in accordance with Section 80 of the Constitution, which we have all sworn to uphold. So it's our responsibility today to ensure that automatically is given to agencies under this government to bring these estimates for us to duly appropriate. That is why the Constitution provided for a full-time legislature, because there is enormous work to be done. We are here every day of the week, except maybe Saturdays and Sundays. So it is not a matter that we are unavailable to make the laws. So we are here to make the laws, and we expect that those who are responsible to bring the laws here, as expected by this law, should be able to do so. So that together, we will be able to build a society we will all be proud of. So I want to thank the Deputy Senate Leader for raising this up, and it is our responsibility on behalf of Nigerians to ensure that monies, public funds, are spent in a manner prescribed by law. So I second the motion.
Senator Sekibo.
Mr. Senior President, and my distinguished colleagues, I am Senator George Thompson Sekiwa, a Justice of the Peace and a Commander of the Order of the Niger. Mr. President, I listened to the motion, well-crafted and well read out. I also listened to the DSP when seconding the motion and the relevant areas he has taken us to in the Constitution, which is a banding effect on these corporate bodies. I have a question. If a man who is to keep the law fails the law, what happens to him? Because if a man puts a law and another man fails, he is taken to court, he is taken to tribunal, he is taken to other areas for punishment. Now, the man that will interpret the law and execute it, if he is failing, what do we do and what happens to him? Mr. President, I will refer you to Section 5 of our Constitution, Section 5(1)(b). If you permit me, I read.
Go ahead.
Section 5(1)(b) of our Constitution. Subject to the provision of this Constitution, the executive powers of the Federation, I'm reading B now, shall extend to the execution and maintenance of this Constitution all laws made by the National Assembly and to all matters with respect to which the National Assembly has, for the time being, power to make laws. Now, the executive, one of their major concerns is to maintain and execute the laws. And if the law says that by January or 2 or 3 months before January, the budget of a corporation should be presented to the National Assembly, and year in, year out, we keep on crying for the same thing. What does it stand for? What do we do? I am thinking that if we take it lightly, I think this is gross misconduct. I don't want to go to the relevant portion of the Constitution. It is gross misconduct. It is gross misconduct because you are spending money without appropriation. You are spending money without endorsement from the National Assembly. And that means you are giving birth to further corruption. Because if you are spending without specifics, if you are spending without approval, if you are spending without accent, even of the Mr. President, is that not corruption? I think the word corruption must be defined more broadly now. It is not when somebody only takes money away and he thinks it's corrupt. When somebody is doing something wrong, it is corruption. When somebody is deceiving the nation, it is corruption. When somebody is misguiding the nation, it is corruption. I think that we need to take stringent steps and compare these parastatals, give them ultimatum from now to submit all their budgets so that the National Assembly will look into them and pass it for them. Otherwise, we will take it as gross misconduct. Thank you very much.
Senator Adiola Lamlekon.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleague, Adiola Solomon Olamilekon, representing Lagos West Senatorial District. Mr. President, let me start by thanking the prime mover of this motion and also the Deputy Senate President who have referred to the relevant section of the Constitution concerning this particular motion. But Mr. President, let me bring it to the notice of my colleague that the budget of parastatals of the government put together is bigger than the federal budget laid before the National Assembly. So what we are saying here today is in excess of 10 trillion naira that is in the hands of the parastatals of the federal government. Mr. President, distinguished colleague, it is saddening to note that the same way and the same tradition these parastatals are trying to ensure that year in, year out, they continue to do
concerning the passage of these their budgets. Last year, I can vividly recollect that as at September last year, the budget of some of these parastatals were in the Senate and were passing due to the fact that these agencies have decided to withhold this budget from the National Assembly. Even at that, the budget performance for that particular year, the details were not in that particular budget. It shows ways and manner by which these parastatals have taken this budget and with little or no seriousness attached to it. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the lack of submission of this budget to the Senate as at this time is a deliberate attempt by the parastatals of the government. As we speak, money has been spent on capital projects, on overhead expenses, running to several millions of naira. Mr. President, if I don't even know of any agency, I can confirm to this Senate that the budget of NNPC is in trillions of naira. And at the end of every year of that budget, NNPC will always declare losses. It's a deliberate attempt. And they will build this expenditure on this budget to the extent that there is no way you can pinpoint where these funds have gone into. So going forward, Mr. President, I want to say this, sir, that we, as a matter of urgency, because some of this budget does not even come through the ministers. There are some budget that is submitted directly to the National Assembly. And the ministers themselves have their own ulterior motive before even bringing the budget. Because if you look at the process by which this budget is submitted, once the budget gets to the minister, it will be sent to the chief of staff to the president. It is from the chief of staff to the president that it can spend several months before now forwarded to the president for signature and onward transmission to the Senate for our consideration. We have to look into all this. And I believe all committee chairmen should meet with all these agencies as a matter of urgency. For instance, in the committee which I'm deputizing, National Communications Commission, as we speak, we've not seen their budgets. And there is no reason that we're given than they've submitted the budget to the chief of staff to the president, not even the minister. So what we are talking here, Mr. President, is a little bit of a cumbersome issue which we need to address, so that unnecessary processes which is being adopted by the system, we have to bring it to side so that we can have access to all these budgets, because there are a lot in that particular budget which is not known to all of us here. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator James Manager.
Thank you, Mr. President, my respected colleagues. James Manager, Delta South. Mr. President, I think one of the features of underdevelopment is our inability to respect laws, rules, and regulations. That is one of the clear features of underdevelopment which we are passing through as a nation. It is very, very unfortunate. And this particular motion, Mr. President, my respected colleagues, the provision is very clear and unambiguous. 21, 1, 2, and 3. Very, very clear. And of course, with the constitutional provision read out by the Deputy Senate President, very profusely, 81 to 4. When you combine these two, it is very clear that there's a responsibility on somebody to do what is compulsory for the person to do on behalf of the country. And talking about 21.3, the budgets of all these corporate bodies ought to have accompanied the budget estimates by Mr. President. Year in, year out, this has not been respected since 1999. And this is clearly very, very unfortunate. Last year, I remember, I'm a chamberman. I'm here all the time. By the grace of God, I'm sure everybody is a living witness to that. I am here all the time. So, I'm here. I come every morning and I close with everybody. So, to the best of my knowledge,
As an indigene.
yesterday and last year, these things were brought here. They didn't accompany the budget anyway, but they were brought here. And referrals were made to different committees. Different committees. I think we too, we have not done very well. We have not done very well, sincerely speaking. Referrals were made, and that was it. At the end of the day, certain things were brought, and Mr. President, we need to do better at this end. Clearly, Mr. President, this is a misconduct. I disagree with Siko, but it's not a gross misconduct. Because in law, every word is defined. When you say one is misconduct, it has its own definition. And when you say one is gross misconduct, it has its own implications. So, but this one, it has its own implication. I don't think we are there yet. Mr. President. Speaking from this side of the chamber, speaking very seriously, it's not a gross misconduct. It's something that must be corrected. And we need to correct it. The time to correct it, no, let there be no distractions, please, my brothers. The time to correct it, in my humble view, is now. It's now. And once it is corrected, and we need to give them a time limit. And we need to do more. There are quite a lot of things that we need to do to ensure that there is compliance with this. And when there is no compliance, then there will be appropriate sanctions, Mr. President. Appropriate sanctions at the end of the day. That can also be done by the National Assembly. So, Mr. President, my respected colleagues, this, in my humble view, is something that we need to look at, and we have to do that on behalf of the nation. And of course, it's something that must be done between the Senate and the House of Reps. And therefore, that synergy is also important. Very, very important, Mr. President. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Senator Barajbe.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am Barajbe, I represent Kano North. Mr. President, this is a serious aberration. It's a serious aberration because it is slap on our constitution and a slap to the entire people of this country. Because I wonder, I don't know where this kind of thing can be condoned. Where money or monies running to trillions of naira are spent without being budgeted for. Are we Banana Republic? Of course we are not. So there's no way you can condone this kind of practice, which is something that is being done year in, year out, as explained by Senator Solomon. So I don't think it's time for rhetorics. It's time to look at how we can stop this mess. We can stop it so that this will not continue. We should amend our laws to compel these people to submit their budget by January of every year. I remember last year it was submitted towards the end of last year. So all the money that were spent from January to the period they spent, they brought the budget, how can you account for that? How can they account for that? It's a serious infraction, and we must create a way to stop this mess. We cannot allow this to continue. We should find a way, we should think of how we can amend their laws, their various laws, to make sure that they submit their budget in time. This is the only way we can do that. We can solve this problem, but not through reminding them how long, how far, how can be reminding them every year. It's not possible. There should be penalty for anyone who goes against the time limit that will be set in the amendment to submit their budgets. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thanks, colleagues. Let us go to the prayer zone. Prayer 1. Urge the ministers of the concerned agencies to, as a matter of urgency, submit their budget to the National Assembly in accordance with provision of Section 21 of the Fiscal Responsibility Act. Senator Gemadi.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Barnabas Gemade. I represent Benue Northeast Senatorial District. Mr. President, I'd like to amend this prayer that we urge the executive branch of government as a matter of urgency to submit the budgets of all parastatals and agencies to to the National Assembly in accordance with the provisions of Section 21 of the Fiscal Responsibility Act. This is because there are many of these agencies that do not report to ministers. And I wanted to contribute on this matter in that respect, but of course, since the time of contribution is over, I think this amendment is necessary to ensure that we really cover what ought to be done. It is not only ministers that are responsible for sending that budget here.
Can you read out your amendment again, sir?
Let's make it informal. That we urge the executive branch of government to, as a matter of urgency, submit the budget of all parastatals and agencies to the National Assembly in accordance with the provisions of Sections 21 of the Fiscal Responsibility Act. I so move.
Second. Yeah. Pardon? DSP.
Sorry, sir. I think unless we're amending the Fiscal Responsibility Act, because talking about ministers, it says those agencies submit to the minister, the minister now forward. So if you now expand it, that will go outside the scope of the Fiscal Responsibility Act. So I think the discussion letter need to reconsider his amendment along this line.
Senator, you're satisfied, yeah? All right, so we'll take the prayer then. Urge the minister. Yeah, amendment. Yeah, DSP.
Sir, amendment, I'll suggest that we change the word urge to request. Request the minister in charge, not the minister of the concern, but the minister in charge of the concerned agencies to, as a matter of urgency, submit their budget to the National Assembly in accordance with the provisions of Section 21 of the Fiscal Responsibility Act, not later than 2 weeks from today.
You have a question, yeah? Senator Gamade.
Senator Barnabas Gamade, Benue Northeast. Mr. President, I'm at a loss on this matter because the provisions of our Constitution state that it is the President that can communicate appropriation bills to the National Assembly and not ministers. So if we're saying that ministers should cause the thing to be brought to the National Assembly, that to my mind is outside the Constitution of our nation. Are they authorized to lay any budget in front of this hallowed chamber? That is the question that we need to look at. And I think if that is the case, we have to state clearly that we urge the President. We have to urge the President. If the executive branch does not sound right, then we have to urge the President to cause these things to be laid, because nobody else has the right to lay any budget in front of National Assembly.
Okay, so we have an amendment to that, then, which will read, urge the President, as a matter of urgency, to submit the budget of parasitic agencies, to the National Assembly in accordance with provision of Section 21 of the Fiscal Responsibility Act, not later than 2 weeks. Within 2 weeks? Not later than 2 weeks. Can we get a seconder? Yeah, Senator Hope Uzodimma.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Senator Hope Uzodimma. I represent Imo West. I rise to second the motion as amended. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, amendment to prayer 1, urge the President as a matter of urgency to submit the budget of the parasitic agencies to the National Assembly in accordance with provisions of Section 21 Fiscal Responsibility Act acknowledged and tweaked. Those in favor of prayer 1 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 2 has been stepped down. Yes. We have finished that, but let's simplify this matter.
I think I have a responsibility to guide this senator. And my responsibility stems from the fact that where a law imposes a duty on a named person, you cannot transfer that duty to another person. That's true, sir. That's the position of the law, sir. So by the Physical Responsibility Act, Section 21, in specific, it refers to the minister and it prescribes a procedure. So this Senate is under obligation to take judicial notice of the fact that that is the requirement of the law. And therefore, any prayer that runs in contradiction of this will be a gross violence.
Okay, can we, Senator Nara, I think if we insert the word the ministers and the president, because they both have to do it. It's either the ministers collect they collect the budget from their parastatals. The ministers cannot communicate to us, so they must send it to the president. So will you be happy with that? No, I'm saying so that we can make progress. The spirit of what we want to say. So if we then amend it to say that the president along with the ministers, because the two have to do it. Distinguished colleagues, Senator James Manager, you were saying something.
Even the national budget, the annual budget that we get, it comes from the different entities, and then from them to the ministers, and the ministers to, before it comes to the Senate. So what the Deputy Senate President is saying, I think it's implied. What I think we are in order. It's implied. We are not there. It's implied. We are not there because it's implied. I don't want to argue too much. I don't want to argue too much on this matter. What distinguished Senator Manager is saying is that the provision that we have taken to say that Section 21 be complied with, there is an implication that the procedure prescribed dictates that ministers should pass it through the president.
But okay, Sir Jay, what is your own amendment to this? Which one is okay? The original pair without the amendment, is that what you're saying?
You see, sir, as a Senate one will function, we have made the laws. In our wisdom, we have donated and put responsibility on named offices. We did it under the Fiscal Responsibility Act. And in this act, Section 21 specifically requires that the ministers should submit their budget through the president. That's what the law says. And our quarrel is that law has not been complied with. So our prayer will not be that the president is involved. Will be that this minister should follow the same procedure. They will not.
Distinguished colleagues, with all due respect, let us not divert from the important issue. I think the spirit of what it is a motion. We have made that point. The spirit of what we're saying is that we want the budget submitted. So let us make progress, and I think let us focus more time on that. At the end of the day, it will not be a case of the superficial issues are now overriding the major issues. The major issue is let the budget be submitted within 2 weeks. I think that's second prayer. Call on the Committee on Finance to ensure compliance. So I'll put the question in. Call on the Committee on Finance to ensure compliance. Those in favor of prayer 2 say aye. Those against say nay. Nays have it. Any additional prayer? Yes, additional prayer. Senator Benga Shafa.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Benga Shaba representing Lagos Senatorial District. I hope I won't be taking the House back on this particular...
We're at additional prayer. If you have additional prayer, we're not taking us prayer. Additional prayer.
That the heads of the concerned agencies be invited to appear before the relevant committees of the Senate to explain the reason why their budgets were not submitted.
Any seconder to that one? Additional prayer, Senator Apan.
Thank you, Mr. President. My distinguished respected colleague, Senator Albert Bassi, Akwa North East. Mr. President, let me first of all observe, Mr. President, that prayer 2.
Prayer 2. There's no prayer 2. If you have an additional prayer, the gentleman that moved the motion has dropped prayer 2. If you have additional prayer, no. You have come up on additional prayer. Say, put your additional prayer. Distinguished colleagues, additional prayer, DSP.
Additional prayer. So because this is a true violation of the Constitution, Section 80, and we cannot watch the Constitution to be in gross violation consistently. So I think we should also reach a conclusion that further expenditure on the current estimate of the agency's concerned should stop forthwith until they comply with the resolution to bring this within 2 weeks. So they don't need to spend any money further until they comply with this resolution.
What is the prayer? Can you phrase the prayer?
That the agencies concerned, the parastatals and agencies concerned, should stop further expenditure on the estimates for the current year until they comply with the provisions of the Fiscal Responsibility Act and the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Any seconder to this? Senator Gobri.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, distinguished colleagues. I stand to second a motion heavily moved by His Excellency the DSP. So I so second. But you see, there is something in addition to that.
Distinguished colleagues, let me put the question. Additional prayer that all agencies and parastatals should stop. Do you say further expenditure, capital expenditure, should stop further capital expenditure in the current year until they comply with the Fiscal Responsibility Act and the Constitution? Those in favor of this additional prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Additional prayer. Yeah, additional prayer, Senator Gobu.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, distinguished colleagues. It is important to understand that the committees of various, the various committee members, the chairman, for example, they are the ones that are approving this. So I think it's important to look at this issue. Therefore, the additional prayer should be, we call on the relevant committees to ensure compliance. Because, no, I'm telling you, this is exactly...
Senator Gobi, the committees have nothing to do with compliance. No. Because, they don't have anything to do with compliance. And on that note, please let me also inform all committee chairmen, if certain parastatals have sent their budget direct to you, it should not be the case. Those budgets should go to their ministers, or transmission to the president and be transmitted to us. So if you have received those budgets, it's of no value in the process. You must direct those agencies to send those to the ministers, onward to the president, and it's then to be transmitted to us. So those of you who are working on those budgets are exercising futility. So can you please stop that exercise? Distinguished colleagues, let me thank Deputy Senate Leader for this very, very important motion. Truly, this motion is at the heart of this fight against corruption. And it's very, very important as we've seen that independent revenue, the amount of money even exceeds how much we get on oil revenue. So it's a huge amount to our revenue line. And if we are talking about we're looking for money to fund projects, hospitals, education, etc., this is where the source of the revenue are. And I cannot see how we can continue in a society where we are fighting corruption, where people will be spending money without approval, without appropriation. It must stop, it will stop, and it's going to stop from now. Clearly, we have made a position that based on this amendment, this motion, they must get a budget into us in 2 weeks. And committee chairman, I want to appeal that once we get the budget on our own part as well, let us ensure that we do it properly, very diligently, and try and turn it around as quick as possible. I thank you. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the second order of the day is the second reading of the National Youth Service Corps Amendment Bill 2016. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this chamber on Tuesday, 24th November 2015. Mr. President, you may wish to invite... Order! Mr. President, you may wish to invite Senator Stella Odua to move the motion for the bill to be read a second time.
Senator Stella Odua.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dear colleagues, my name is Senator Stella Odua. I represent Anambra North. Mr. President, may I lead this debate on National Youth Service? Mr. President, my dear colleagues, permit me to lead the debate on this very important bill which seeks to amend the NYSC Act to provide for compulsory acquisition of vocational skills by COP members. The bill was read for the first time in this chamber on the 24th of November 2015. Mr. President, dear colleagues,
To improve.
confused about what to do after their service period. The dwindling job opportunities in the country has necessitated the call for the passage of this NYSC Amendment Bill into law in order to address these challenges by educating and training COP members on skill acquisition and entrepreneurial ventures / skills. The major goal of this bill, when passed, is to equip COP members with entrepreneurial skills to enable them build sustainable and profitable businesses after their youth service year. The benefits of this program, Mr. President, include securing future for COP members through acquisition of relevant skills towards business success, learning in a conducive environment with a state-of-the-art teaching materials, maximizing their service year, and setting the stage for a fulfilling future. Then providing access to several funding windows to towards starting or improving their business, generating substantial resources through harnessing their potentials, learning to develop a winning and investor-ready business plan, among others. Mr. President, my dear colleagues, I seek to introduce the idea of compulsory vocational skill acquisition by core members to develop them in some skill in order to become employers of labor after their service here. The period of NYSC ought to be for them to be prepared to rediscover their passions, their innate skills, and not to dwell on their certificates as is presently being done. They need to be able to provide food on their various tables. Rather, it is the skills and the talents that will equip them to do that. The amendment of this bill, therefore, is to seek for insertion of a new section, Section 5, to provide for compulsory vocational training for core members in the skill domain as outlined in Schedule to the bill. The bill further splits the service into two. You will have the first one, which will be to direct the gaining of employment in the workplace, while the second part will be geared towards free and compulsory acquisition of vocational skills. NYSC, in accordance with the provision of the bill, will collaborate with National Directorates for Employment and other relevant accredited and registered vocational centers and artisan workshop for vocational training of core members. The objective of this bill is to reduce unemployment among our teeming graduates after their service here as they become self-employed and by implication employers of labor. The enactment of this bill into law will equip our graduates with practical skills during the service year, and this will go a very long way in reducing the number of graduates seeking for few or non-available civil service jobs. Mr. President, dear colleagues, the thrust of this bill is to integrate entrepreneurship skill into NYSC program and to provide job creation platform through NYSC and provide also poverty alleviation platform and reduce unemployment rates. Developing of youth enterprises and technological development will lead to recognition of Nigerian certificates nationally and internationally. Mr. President, my dear colleagues, we have to transform NYSC into an NYSC of national service and national development, which was the original idea behind the scheme. Beyond national integration, it should also be a platform for national development. It will be worthy of commendation if a young person in the service of his or her fatherland for 1 year gets in return from their country necessary skill that will better their lives in future. It is my firm belief that this bill will develop and place our teeming youth in the right direction after service, hence make them useful tool for transformation of our dear country and national economy. I therefore urge you all to please support this bill for second reading. Mr. President, I also will want to mention here that this bill will need to go to Constitutional Amendments Committee for the process to complete should this bill be passed. And I have done that with the chairman of the committee. Thank you, Mr. President.
Deputy Senate Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and my distinguished colleague. Let me first of all start by seconding the move by distinguished Senator Stella Odua to realign the journey so far in our quest, first, to contribute towards the integration of this country and enforce its unity, and then to move to a place where we can take the advantage of the skill to begin to redefine our national goals and objectives. Mr. President, virtually every senator here has had the opportunity of getting involved in National Youth Service Corps. Incidentally, I had the privilege of serving in Imo State, which has remained my home till tomorrow. And I do know that even as at that time, even as at that time, there were attempts to ensure that at least 40 to 50% of those who got involved in National Youth Service Corps were redirected to acquire skills that will make them live on their own after leaving service. But I think shortly after that, it has always remained the program of NYSC to just send people, some of them, to even places where they have no relevance. We've seen medical doctors being posted to ministries. We've seen engineers being posted to as classroom teachers, and these are all misplaced program. I think that at this stage of our national and economic development, it will be nice for us to begin to redefine our goals and objectives. And part of it is to ensure that since we do not have available jobs to cater for the teeming population of our youth who are coming out of our universities, it behoves on us to begin to redirect their thinking along the line of acquiring skills that will make them useful members of the society upon completion of this program. So I think this is a laudable bill coming at an appropriate time that the Senate will capitalize on to intervene in redirecting the policy objectives of our National Youth Service scheme. I'm therefore urging my colleagues to support this bill to pass second reading, and I so move.
Senator Utazi.
Mr. President, I'm Senator Chukwuka Utazi. I represent the good people of Enugu North Central District of Enugu State. I want to thank most distinguished Princess Stella Odua for coming with this bill, which, if properly handled, will give answer to the problem of the unemployment in this country. Mr. President, today, thousands upon thousands of Nigerian youths complete service here, and they roam the streets. And after roaming for 1, 2, 3 years without finding anything, most of them end up getting into crimes and doing anything at all to earn a living. That is not the way it should be, Mr. President. Mr. President, in the years past, university education meant employment, meant having a car, meant having a house. On graduation, our people, some of them are here, who when they were doing their last exam in the university,
inviting them for interviews, sometimes inside the university. But times have changed. Today, university education is not equal to employment. It doesn't satisfy all those things their parents had in the past. So we have to change it. We have to change. And in changing, Mr. President, we have to decide to equip these youths with skills outside having their certificate. Paper qualification is not just enough. So I support the intendment of the mover of this bill, Mrs. Odua, that we have to encourage these people doing the service here. Instead of just coming there and moving, not minding your background, you go and teach. You do one thing or the other. It should not be so. This 1 year should be used to teach these people essentially what they should be doing in case they don't have paid employment. If we take that time, instead give them just two months or 3 months to visit anywhere and work. But during the service year, retain them at the orientation camp. Bring people, master craftsmen, to teach them what they should do in case you don't have employment. If they learn all those things, do an internship on the condition, and then the central bank using their entrepreneurship scheme to support them by giving themselves loans, they will have something for themselves. So I am supporting this bill for second reading because it's going to be an answer to an existing problem. Thank you so much.
Distinguished colleagues, I know the sponsor of this bill is very popular, so I see many hands are going up. But, so let me just, I know many hands, I can see them going up. Anybody against this? So if there's nobody against it, you permit me to put the question. You have information. Senator Nelson.
Thank you very much, distinguished President. Distinguished President, I am in support of the bill, but however, we should make it optional. Why I'm saying it should be optional vocational training is that, assuming somebody was a medical doctor or a lawyer, you cannot force him to come and learn another vocation if he was a lawyer or a medical.
Senator Nelson, that's no information. That's a debate. All right. Distinguished colleagues, I'll put the questions. Those in favor that this bill be read the second time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, the bill for an act to amend the National Youth Service Corps Act, Cap N84, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria, 2004, to provide for the free and compulsory acquisition of vocational skills by corps members and for such related matters 2016, second reading.
A bill for an act to amend the National Youth Service Corps Act, Cap N84, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria, 2004, to provide for free and compulsory acquisition of vocational skills by corps members and for such related matters. 2017, is it? 2017, second reading. This bill is referred to the Constitutional Review Committee and for further legislative work. Let me thank Senator Odua for this bill, very important bill. As we all know, when the NYSC was introduced, then the focus was integration, unity, and understanding. I think the scheme needs to also adapt to the present modern times where issue of vocational skills are very important. So I think this will go a long way in supporting our youth in the area of vocational skill acquisition. Thank you. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the third order of the day is the second reading of the Federal Entrepreneurship Centers Establishment ETC Bill 2017. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this chamber on Tuesday, 12 July 2016. Mr. President, you may wish to invite Senator Mao Ohuwa Bunwa to move the motion for the bill to be read a second time.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, my name is Senator Mao Arungo Wabunwa, representing the entire people of Abia North Senatorial District of Abia State. Mr. President, I want to thank you for the opportunity to lead this debate on this all-important bill that have been coming for a while now. And you want to agree with me that the bill that has just passed second reading is laying credence to the importance of this bill already, because there is some relationship. This is lead debate on the second reading of the bill for an act to establish federal entrepreneurship centers at the local government areas of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Mr. President, distinguished senators, it is my pleasure to lead this debate on the second reading of this bill for an act to establish federal entrepreneurship centers in all the 774 local government areas of the Federation. The bill was read for the first time on the 12th day of July 2016, and it has the primary purpose of addressing the problem of unemployment among the youth of our nation, especially at this time of our history. Today, it is a well-known information that the unemployment statistics of Nigerian youth continue to rise astronomically, with current statistics showing an alarming 59.95% of Nigerian youth within the age bracket of 15 to 24 years as unemployed or underemployed. The same statistics equally show that 29% of our Nigerians unemployed youth are made up of untrained and uneducated youth, and they live in the rural population of our states, and with women accounting for 50% of such unemployed youth. The daunting statistics of uneducated, untrained, and unemployed Nigerian youth is equally made more complex by the high rate of about 71% of unemployed among youth that graduate from the tertiary institutions of our nation. Even that rate of graduate unemployment seems to be growing at a rate of 5.6%, while the few job creation initiatives of the federal government have fallen by 69% in recent times. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, while the unemployment scenario of Nigerian youth today may appear daunting, no one shares any doubt that entrepreneurship remains the single sure engine of tapping the potentials open to all those that are unemployed, whether they be untrained, uneducated, educated, or poorly-trained, or idle manpower. The ideal resolution lies in our collective ability, Mr. President, to identify an entrepreneurship training platform that can be assessed at the point of need so as to assist unemployed gain self-sustenance within a sustainable environment. Tracking our youth unemployment status, therefore, calls for a strategic policy trust that is driven by an act of parliament and empowered to consistently develop ready-made entrepreneurs at the local government areas so that our unemployed youth find avenues of developing skills that match opportunities available in the economic markets around their locality. This bill, which seeks to establish a federal entrepreneurship center in all the local governments of the Federation, will fill the necessary gap between unemployed youths and appropriate skill acquisition for sustained living. When passed into law, Mr. President, it will equally give legal teeth to the expectations of the federal government job creation initiatives as envisaged from Empower, Graduate Internship Scheme GIS, National National Director for Development, Small Medium-Scale Enterprises, so on and so forth. The bill provides for the training and retraining of unemployed youth in needed skills, and at the point of need, this, I believe, will make a world of difference in the world of work and self-employment. Mr. President, distinguished senators, Section 3A and B of this bill provides a mandate for the consistent education, training and retraining of not less than 90% of unemployed youth in each local government catchment area so that they acquire a standardized self-method of job creation and empowerment that take advantage of local available resources, including solid minerals, etc. Section 4 and 5 of this bill provide for a board of directors of the Federal Entrepreneurship Center to be established under the Federal Ministry of Labor, Employment and Productivity for effective supervision of the center and for ensuring that the unique curricula of the center serve the special needs of the centers. The trainees and the local government will also while also capturing the expected 90% of unemployed youth and providing a system of evaluation of the progress made by trainees as they transit into active youth entrepreneurs. This bill, when passed into law, will attract its funding from the combined sources of the federal government and local government, state governments, and from the social responsibility contribution of business investors and high net worth individuals operating within the locations of the entrepreneurship centers. Mr. President, distinguished senators, I seek your support so that this bill is passed into law. This act, for all intents and purposes, is sure to become the economic elixir, the rare formula and panacea which our various governments at all levels have for long been seeking to address the growing problem of youth unemployment. This bill went well. Mr. President, I move that this bill should pass second reading. There is no gainsaying the facts, and from the discussion in passing the last bill, that unemployment has become the bane of our society, this country today. And like I've said, it's not just only setting up a skill acquisition center. This is an entrepreneurship center, and that will attract its students or participants from the locality. And we also know that we are going further, not just to have a general entrepreneurship center. These centers will be specialized to the resources available within the locality. And by so doing, it will, to a large extent, reduce urban migration. So that within the locality, there are issues, there are resources, and you train people, train youth in accordance, even in addition to those who have graduated. So, Mr. President, it's my plead with my colleagues that they should support this bill to go through the second reading. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Samego.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Senator Sam Egu, representing Ebony North. Mr. President, I wish to speak on with regards to this debate on entrepreneurial development centers, and to inform the Senate that we already have these centers under SMEDAN, which is under the Ministry of Industries. As I'm talking to us now, we have 6 centers, 6 zonal centers in this country, each representing each senatorial zone, each geopolitical zone. And during our oversight function about a month ago, we tried to visit these entrepreneurial development centers at various geopolitical zones, and they are all, in fact, better seen than described, because they do not exist at all because of lack of fund. Most of the centers, you just see a large expanse of land, buildings, and the premises overtaken by weeds and rats and scorpions and snakes. In fact, most of the equipments are moribund. In fact, in some centers, you will see the equipment that were imported even before the Civil War. Most of them are still in cartons, and they have outlived their usefulness. So I think that this bill, in as much as I support it, that during the public hearing, there will be an effort to integrate and harmonize what this bill tries to address, because we already have entrepreneurial development centers under SMEDA across the country. So that is my contribution, Mr. President.
At the same time, maybe you need to clear, I don't know where you are. If you claim that it's under SMEDA at the moment, at the zone, at the state is not working, Then how do you support that it will work at the local government level? I don't. So you're not supporting them, really? I think no, why I say that, I'm trying to protect you. I think we should look at some of these bills when we speak and take sentiment, and let's look at it for the interest of the bill, not looking at the sponsor. You know, he's a very popular senator. We don't want to go against it. But I think, because you have made a good point. I mean, if we cannot manage Zona, how are we going to manage local government? But let's let me take more contribution. Senator Shiusan.
Mr. President, I stand as Comrade Senator Shiusani. Mr. President, I share the concern of Senator Sam Egu in the very sense that it's not only Smedan that has skill acquisition centers and entrepreneurship centers. The CBN has it, and also ND, and they have not been working. So I think what we can do with this proposal under this bill is to see the possibility of harmonizing all these things. Billions of taxpayers' money have been pumped in every year for skill acquisition and entrepreneurship programs. But the output from such kind of program is not commensurate with the money that is being pumped in. It is true, as a nation of 170 million people, we have a growing army of unemployed. And we must be serious about it. That these millions of young people that roam about in the street poses a serious security problem to the peace, unity, and stability of this country. And these forces of unemployed will serve as a force for revolution in this country if care is not taken. The only phenomenon that has been able to provide jobs for everyone is politics. And I believe if there is anything we can do in this country to take care of the young ones, that we can provide jobs in federal parastatal agencies in terms of MDAs, is to see how we can give them the opportunity to explore their skills and potentials for the greater good of this country. Government after government, you will see programs and policies on employment which never works. But you see taxpayers' money pumped into it. And right now we have the Empower, which is commended by everyone. But I believe what we only know about Empower is that money will be given. But money will be given for what job? I think this federal entrepreneurship proposal is good, but unfortunately our previous experiments have not been able to provide the necessary solution to this problem. Government agencies today reserve jobs for people in the position of power and their children, their siblings, their brothers and sisters. But we can't employ everyone. But if we can't do it, we should know there is a consequences for that. So as far as I'm concerned, this bill stands against the reality, but it is also a good idea. But unfortunately, like I've said, SMEDAN are on it, CBN are on it, ND are on it. So as far as I'm concerned, the issues that are being raised that will impede the success of this program should also be part of the consideration before we take a decision on this bill. Thank you very much.
Senator Aido.
Thank you, Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues.
My name is Senator Atai Aidoko Ali. I represent Kogi East. Mr. President, I rise to support this motion, and this bill. Mr. President, there's no doubt that the issue of unemployment, especially youth unemployment in this country, is one of our greatest challenges. This has resulted to all sorts of vices by our youth. Mr. President, the reasons given by the two earlier speakers, Senator Samegu and Senator Shosani, I believe are the more reasons why we should support this bill and allow this bill to go to second reading where it will be developed properly. I say this because, Mr. President, the issues raised by the first speaker that you have centers, entrepreneurship centers in the 6 geopolitical zones. Mr. President, the aim of this bill cannot be achieved because if you have a center, for instance, for geopolitical zone you have in Nasarawa, I don't know how you can bring entrepreneurs from my village, for instance, from Olamaboro local government in Kogi State, to come to Nasarawa to the skill acquisition center. The patronage will be low because the cost of accommodating them, the cost of infrastructure, logistics, to keep them in a zone, in a place far from where they are, is very enormous and expensive. So I believe that if we organize this and make it close to the people, the unemployment is local, and we make it close to where these youths reside, I think it will make this thing more effective and efficient. So I think the argument he has is even in support of this bill to the extent that if we create these entrepreneurship centers at the local government, those moribund ones, which is probably as a result of access by distance from the locations, will be resolved. Another reason, Mr. President, is that all these other efforts at entrepreneurship are not so effective because there's no law establishing them. If you have a law, for instance, this one establishing these entrepreneurship centers at local government level, it is a must. It's a law. If it's established, if the structures are put together, there should be compliance. So if we argue that because some are moribund, all other establishments of government are backed by law, if universities, polytechnics, they're establishments by law, and therefore you will see that they function properly. So if we allow these things to just be on ad hoc basis, SMEDAN and ND just create centers at their will, it will not work because there's no law establishing them. So when we harmonize this by establishing a law, I think that it will be more efficient and it will be highly, highly beneficial to the society. Finally, Mr. President, I believe that this bill, if enacted, Mr. President, there are so many wastages. For instance, since the inception of SDGs, since my years in the National Assembly, we have skill acquisition centers that we create. There's no local government in this country that SDG has not built a skill acquisition center. It is not utilized. Some of them are just abandoned. Nobody uses them. They will complete the project and abandon them. But when you have this kind of project, these acts will establish an agency that will take over all these things and harmonize them. There's no control over all these rural acquisition centers. Because of that, Mr. President, we in the committee of SDG, we have decided to take a general view of all these skill acquisition centers that are abandoned in this country. As a matter of fact, we have sent letters to every senator to send our staffs to go and take stock of all all SDG projects in our various constituencies with the view of especially looking at the skill acquisition centers where we will now harmonize with NDE and all other agencies to work out how these things will be beneficial to to resolve the unemployment issue. So I believe that any senator that has not gotten this information, I believe all our offices have been served with this information. We needed the feedback so that we will be able to take stock of all the abandoned skill acquisition center. And this bill now will help us. It will enable these things to be well coordinated. And Mr. President, to be honest, this is capable of reducing the unemployment problems by about 20%. So I urge my colleagues to support this bill, let it go to second reading so that the full details, all the issues that will be raised can be addressed. Thank you, Mr. President.
Well, before you talked about 20% reduction. Senator Mao, where is the financial implication of this bill? I just observed that. Where is it? So, Senator, do you have it on yours? Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. President.
No, do you have it? Do you have the financial?
I suppose, the idea behind the bill. Unemployment has reached an alarming proportion in this country. And whatever we can do to, solve it, we should do it. But I doubt very much if it is feasible and practicable to involve state and local government on this kind of project.
Senator Gobri.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, distinguished colleagues. I stand, Your Excellency, distinguished colleagues, to support this bill. It may look very expensive when you look at the number of local governments we have in this country, 774 in the whole country. But if you look at the mass of area voices that we have in this country, in every local government, when you are moving, they are following you around, making a lot of noise, then I think there is need for us to find something for them so that we can provide very good employment for these people. And I think one area to do this is to have entrepreneurship centers where people can learn trades, can learn skills to be able to fend for themselves, and then also contribute to the economic growth and development of this country. And this is the only way out. Yes, we are talking about several centers of this nature that are somewhere from the Federal Ministry of Industry, from Central Bank, from MD and so on. But some of those centers are not functioning. They are archaic. They are moribund. So why do we say that we cannot do this simply because others are not working? I think the main reason is simple. These people, these centers are not even known by people. If you look at even Kalambena, where I was the managing director and chairman of the cement company, that center has been existing since 1965. But I'm telling you, 50% or 70% of the people in Sokoto did not know about that center. Why? Because they do not advertise, they do not do anything, and nothing is coming out of that center. So I think, Your Excellency, it's good to have this. In as much as, yes, it's a little bit costly to have this in all the local government areas, but I think it's very good. It's a good woman. It's a very good idea, so I support it 100%. Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
So, any more contribution? Let me put the question so we can. Those in favor that this bill read second time say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, the bill for an act to provide for the establishment of the federal entrepreneurship centers at local government areas and for other matters connected thereto, 2017, second reading.
A bill for an act to provide for the establishment of federal entrepreneurship centers at local government areas and for other matters connected thereto, 2017, second reading taken. This bill is referred to the Committee on Industry and State and Local Government. Report back within 4 weeks. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the fourth order of the day is the second reading of the Proceeds of Crimes Bill 2017. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this chamber on Thursday, 10th November 2016. Mr. President, may we invite Senator Mohammed Hassan to move the motion for the bill to be read a second time.
Senator Mohammed Hassan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am Mohammed Hassan. I represent Yobe South Senatorial District. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, it gives me a great pleasure to be leading the debate on the bill to make provisions for the confiscation, forfeiture, and management of properties derived from unlawful activities. Distinguished colleagues, this bill was read for the first time in the chamber on the 10th of November 2016. The bill seeks to provide a legal and institutional framework for the recovery and management of proceeds of crime in such a manner that is more organized, coordinated, and allows the country to benefit from rather than lose the value of the property obtained from these illegal activities. What we have now creates a very consuming system that leaves both the victim and the state as losers of these values recovered by agencies of government, end up decrepit and decaying with little or no accountability or ultimate responsibility. This bill is aimed at providing the necessary consolidation of the existing provisions on the recovery of proceeds of assets across our law enforcement agencies and create the institutional structures that will eliminate corruption in the handling of proceeds of crime while allowing law enforcement to focus on their key role of arrest, investigation, and prosecution of cases. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, though there are assets for future provisions in the extant laws, we have like the EFCC Act, NDLEA Act, Recovery of Public Poverty Special Provisions Act, the Failed Banks Recovery Debts and Financial Malpractices in Banks Act, and other penal laws in the country. These provisions basically cover forfeiture after conviction and considering the gestation of most criminal prosecutions in Nigeria. Many suspects in corruption cases always manage to hold onto the property of where such property is seized. They are left to the elements to decay and wear out. The absence of a civil forfeiture law in the country makes a mockery of the anti-corruption fight. It has continued to remain a cause of double jeopardy. Criminals in the country are not deterred because of the liberalization that they will not be denied the benefit of their loot, whether they are caught or not. To put it sarcastically, it is only in Nigeria that a suspect arraigned for corruption, stealing, or embezzlement grin from ear to ear into the dock, knowing that with the loot gained, they can circumvent justice. This is a very, very sad commentary for the nation. The Nigerian people have demanded, and the present government has made the anti-corruption fight the mainstay of its administration, but the absence of this law has made the implication of the fight a value loss proposition for the economy. Today, we have choice properties, cars, jewelries, and valuables seized, robbed, and abandoned. By the time this bill is passed, it is expected that the agency set up under this law will be professionally managed and deal with forfeited properties for the benefit of the Nigerian people. The objectives of this bill, therefore, are to provide for an effective legal and institutional framework for the recovery and management of proceeds of crime or benefits derived from unlawful activities. It says to achieve, deprives a person of the proceeds of an unlawful activity and other benefits derived from an offense committed within or outside Nigeria. Prevent the reinvestment of proceeds of unlawful activities in the furtherance of criminal enterprise. Harmonize and consolidate existing legislative provisions on the recovery of proceeds of crime and related matters in Nigeria. And make comprehensive provisions for the restraint, seizure, confiscation, and forfeiture of property derived from unlawful activities and any instrumentalities used or intended to be used in the commission of such unlawful activities. The bill has 164 clauses into 12 parts, namely Part 1, which sets out the objectives and application of the law, civil forfeiture, additional investigation powers in civil recovery, recovery of cash being imported or exported, criminal forfeiture and confiscation, proceeds of crime recovery and management agency, investigation, search and seizure, administration, confiscated and forfeiture properties account, jurisdiction, general provisions related or relating to legal proceedings. The benefits of the bill are enormous. Forfeiture is an essential tool in the fight against corruption to deprive offenders of the proceeds of their criminal conduct, to deter the commission of further offenses, and to reduce the profits available to fund further corrupt or criminal enterprises. The bill amends provisions in other laws dealing with forfeitures of proceeds of crime that may run in conflict with its provisions to ensure harmonization, effectiveness, and operational and institutional streamlining. This bill will enable government prioritize the recovery of assets from serious economic crimes. It will enable the enforcement and pursuit of the assets of all who profit from crime when it is in the best interest of the society to do so. It will assist other law enforcement agencies across the world to collaborate and enforce assets on our behalf, and where necessary, assist us in developing our assets recovery capacity and capability. And by taking away the profits that fund crime, by recovering the benefits of corruption, by the sheer knowledge that this is the implication of the proposed crime, we are better equipped to disrupt the cycle that sustains corruption and encourage criminal behaviors in our system. The bill will enable a prosecuting agency to identify properties which are proceeds of crime and commence forfeiture proceedings against the properties in situations where the defendant cannot be prosecuted, either because he is dead or out of jurisdiction. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I dare say that the assets forfeiture law is today one of the key missing links to our fight against corruption. Therefore, the proceeds of crime bill we have here today has the potential to radically swing the pendulum of the anti-corruption war firmly in the favor of the country. We are today struggling to recover or confiscate the proceeds of corruption that we have identified and even moved against both home and abroad. With this law, we will be better equipped to deal with the proceeds of this kind of activities and make it easier for anti-graft agencies to not only prosecute and jail economic criminals, but also to effectively recover for the country the value that may have been taken and more. The Asset Recovery and Forfeiture Agency set up under this law will be empowered to administer the proceeds of crime and as well as establish special account for the recovery and safekeeping of monies recovered from as proceeds of crime. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, this bill is part of the action plan of the government to prosecute criminal activities within and outside the nation's border, as well as fulfill its commitment to the international community, especially the Financial Action Task Force and International Government Action Group against money laundering in West Africa, to enact some identified critical laws to tackle criminal activities globally. Countries like India, USA, UK, Australia, Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica and Kenya have all enacted this legislation in compliance with the FATF requirement. The fight against corruption, money laundering, economic and financial crime calls for global collaboration. Considering our peculiar circumstances and inadequacies, the country stands to benefit more from the collaborative effort of the global community if the bill is passed into law. The issue of anti-corruption must be fought on the basis of value. It does not make much sense that in the name of fighting corruption, the properties derived after is less than 50% the market value worth of the property recovered. Placed in between the cost of prosecution, investigation, and time, the society loses so much. Therefore, value must proceed from not only changing behaviors, but only enabling both the accused and the state not to become losers at the end of the trial due to failed recovery and management of the crime property. There is no gainsaying that the nation is in dire need for the enactment of this legislation if we are to make the war against corruption meaningful, purposeful, and effective. I therefore urge you to support this bill to pass through the second reading and subsequently pass into law. The financial implications of this bill, of this agency, under the bill is attached in line with Order 77, subsection 3 of the Standing Orders of the Senate for our consideration. Thank you, distinguished colleagues.
Deputy Senate President.
Thank you, Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues. I just want to make a very quick intervention in support of this bill. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, over the years, we've had instances of monies, properties being forfeited to federal government, and this is an opportunity for us to deal with some of the problems arising therefrom. We are aware that monies are shared from the federation account to the states, to the federal and to local governments. Sometimes government officials are accused of embezzling government funds at different levels of government, the local government, the state, and the federal. But what I've seen is that the anti-corruption agencies such as the ICPC, EFCC, even the police, when these assets are seized, they quickly go to court and ask that these monies be forfeited to the federal government. Some of these monies do not belong to the federal government. So that means that when the federal government are giving this money to the respective agencies and arms of government in accordance with Section 160 of the Constitution to the federation account, they will go to the back door using the instrumentality of the court to take back these monies. So I think it is time this matter is settled with this bill, that monies recovered from agencies, local government, states, should be returned to the appropriate arms of government and agencies instead of being forfeited to the federal government, because that is fair and unfair to those people whose monies are in contention. So I believe that the committee that will deal with this matter will look at this aspect of the law and see how they make sure that it is taken care of in this bill, so that federal government will not continue to rob other arms of government and agencies of government through the fight against corruption. So I believe that this is very critical, because states have been struggling to overcome this challenge, and each time they find it extremely difficult. So this National Assembly should come to the aid of the other arms of government and the other government agencies to ensure that monies recovered in respect of embezzlement arising from those arms of government or agencies are duly returned
to the appropriate authorities. This is my contribution.
Yes, Minister Leader.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. My distinguished colleagues, I believe that the submission of the Deputy Senate President has called me to add my voice in support of this bill. I recall that when I was opportune to serve as governor, we had monies that were recovered and in millions of dollars, and until the day I left office, those monies never came back. I think they remain in federal coffers. And also we have had instances of complaints across Nigeria where billions of dollars have been recovered and that were said to have been stolen from Nigeria to Swiss Bank, to Bank of America, to all sorts of places. And when those monies return, the monies actually belong to the Federation account. And by the time they return, they are kept only at the federal level. They are no longer shared in line with the constitutional provision. So in other words, the federal government will take the money, even if it's $2 or $3 billion, and they will take it both 100%. And so the local governments will lose, the state governments will lose. So I think this bill will be able to delineate and then make provision so that at the end of the day, such monies that are recovered, that were, what we may call, that belong to the common people, that belong to all tiers of government, will be shared in line with constitutional provision. So I want to commend my brother, Senator Hassan, for bringing this bill, and I do hope that by the time it is passed and given to the appropriate committee, we'll do more work to bring the other extant laws and regulations and other laws existing on forfeitures and seizures to in line so that we can actually have a streamlined system of managing this. I do know that also one of the problems we may encounter in the long run will be the idea of some of these assets remaining as exhibits in court. And if it takes 5, 10, 15 years, some of them may run down, and by the time the winners, the people win their cases in court, recovering will be difficult. So I think we'll have to tinker with different provisions to ensure that when somebody wins his matter in court, then the asset will still be available for such a person. And I think this kind of agency will protect those assets. I doubt, Mr. President, if anybody will oppose this bill. So I support it. Thank you, sir.
Anybody against this bill? Put the question then. Those in favor that this bill read the second time, say aye. Aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to make comprehensive provision for the confiscation, forfeiture, and management of proceeds of crimes derived from unlawful activities and for committed matters 2017, second reading.
A bill for an act to make comprehensive provisions for the confiscation, forfeiture, and management of proceeds of crime derived from unlawful activities and for connected 2017 second reading taken. Let me thank the sponsor of this, Senator Mohammed Hassan, for this very important bill. As you highlighted, most countries that have made remarkable progress in the fight against anti-corruption have been able to establish this kind of formidable national forfeiture regime. And I think by so doing, it will be going a long way to fight corruption. And these are the more meaningful ways by which we'll be able to make progress in the fight against corruption. Strengthening institutions, providing laws that will also act as deterrents. If you know that if you are going to commit any act, there is no hiding place for some of these assets, I think they will go as deterrent. But as you rightly say, the laws that we have at the moment does not provide for that. So this is again in the spirit of the government's commitment, our commitment to support the executive in the fight against anti-corruption. And this bill will be referred to judiciary, human rights, and if you can report back within 4 weeks. Yeah, Senator David Moore, 4 weeks. Thank you so much. Leader of Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the fifth order of the day is the second reading of the Unclaimed Dividends Funds Bill 2017. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this chamber on Thursday, 9th March 2017. Mr. President, you wish to invite Senator Robert Boniface to move the motion for the bill to be read a second time.
I think the two people here, Senator Boniface and Senator Engineer Booker.
Senator Boniface informed me before he left that they would like to have this bill stepped down. They want to undertake more legislative consultation. So I move that we step down this bill till another legislative day.
Mr. President, I rise to second the motion that this bill be stepped down to another date. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that we should stand this bill down to another legislative day, say aye. Those against, say nay. Yes, I have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the sixth order of the day is the second reading of the Chartered Polymer Institute Establishment ETC Bill 2017. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this chamber on Tuesday, 6 December 2016. Mr. President, we wish to invite very distinguished Senator Chukwuka Utazi to move the motion for the bill to be read a second time.
Senator Utazi.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, thank you for the opportunity to lead debates on the Bill for an Act to provide for the establishment of the Chartered Polymer Institute of Nigeria and for matters connected thereto. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, thank you for this bill was already first time on Tuesday, December 6, 2016. Please correct it, not 2017. When different segments of the populace achieve specialization and technical knowledge of the various spheres of life in the society, economic success and efficiency is achieved. It also helps the society create a middle-class belt, as what ordinarily would have been at waste are recycled and converted into use in other forms. When these technical areas are grafted into the educational structure of the nation, it creates a huge crop of technical people who bring increased value to societal life. Today in Nigeria, polymer materials, be they natural or synthetic, are one of the environmental issues cities and villages face. Polymer is a natural or synthetic substance or mixture, usually of high molecular mass, whose molecules are formed by polymerization and consists usually of a linked sequence of identical units. Substances like celluloid, lignin, nucleic acid, hairs are naturally occurring polymers, while nylon, rayon, and rubber are synthetic polymers. Today, plastic bottles, possibly because of their easy disposability and friendliness to the environment, are replacing cans in the preservation of soft drinks, water, and other liquids. Polythene bags have constant presence in every home. In Nigeria, sachet water has become a popular brand because they are handy in quenching thirst and are easy to make, especially among the poor. The problem, however, is that there is no standard for disposing these substances. Not only do they litter the environment and constitute hazards, burning them creates even more hazards as dangerous smoke, injurious to the ozone layer, are sent into the atmosphere and leads to air depletion. In developed societies, picking, crushing, and recycling substances have made many a man millionaires and has provided jobs for substances we hardly take notice of. The essence of this bill is to establish a Chartered Polymer Institute of Nigeria, and one of the cardinal objectives of the institute is to promote, advance, research, and develop the application of polymer science engineering and technology in the polymer and allied industries in Nigeria. The institute shall be a professional body for promoting the professional integrity and status of all persons engaged in polymer science, engineering, and technology. It shall prescribe standard of experience and efficiency as essential in the science of polymer and ensure a recognized status of professionalism by virtue of membership of the institute. The institute will encourage, advance, disseminate knowledge, education, practical practical training and research into the profession. It shall improve and elevate the technical and general knowledge of the polymer science, engineering, and technology through the delivery of lectures and holding of classes, and to test by examination in collaboration with approval from relevant government institutions and agencies, and to award certificates, scholarships, grants, rewards, and other benefits, and undertake in collaboration and with approval from relevant governmental agencies the accreditation of manpower training programs in polymer science, engineering, and technology. These objectives are geared towards the application of polymer science, engineering, and technology, and as regards plastics, rubbers, coatings, adhesives, inks, and allied industries in Nigeria and elsewhere. To this end, chartering of the Institute forces the enabling environment to actualize these objectives. The bill has 7 parts and 25 sections. It has 3 schedules and a body of regulations for the conduct of the affairs of the Institute. I therefore solicit the support of distinguished members of this Senate to pass this bill into law because of the professionalization and economic prospect it holds for our people. I therefore move that this bill be read the second time. And I ask our colleagues that if we do this, we will be working working very well in ensuring that the environment is free of all the things that make life unbearable for our people. The compendium of financial implication of the bill for this act is hereby attached. I therefore ask my colleagues to give support to this bill so that it will be read the second time. Thank you, Mr. President.
Other contributors? Yes, Senator Gobi.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, distinguished colleagues. The field of engineering, which is called polymer science, is a very important field. In fact, it's one of the areas where automobile industry should actually form the basis of its own parts production. I could remember when I was at the University of Detroit, the Polymer Science Institute was one of the best. I mean, that department was one of the best. And in fact, it was the one that was producing all these motor vehicle parts in that area, particularly within the greater Detroit. So I support this bill. It's a very, very important bill, and I hope everybody will support it. I mean,
Senator Adoku. No, Senator Adoku first. Sorry.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I lend my support to this bill for the simple and common reason that our life has become plastic. Virtually every household item that you have is either used as a product of polymer science or the other. And it is only common sense and stands to reason that we ought to bring an institution to bear on the production and engineering of these things that are very, very pervasive in our life. There is no need to argue too far on this matter, because once you are in your house, you turn left, right, and center, you must find a product of this science and engineering. I urge my colleagues to give the necessary support that it deserves. Thank you.
Is anybody against this bill? So let me put the question. Those in favor that this bill is read the second time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, the bill for an act to provide for the establishment of the Chartered Polymer Institute of Nigeria and for other matters connected thereto, 2017, second reading.
A bill for an act to provide for the establishment of the Chartered Polymer Institute of Nigeria and for other matters connected thereto, 2017, second reading. This bill is referred to the Committee on Establishment and Public Service Matters and report back in 4 weeks. Just for slight amendment, the earlier bill we passed for second reading on procedural crime that I referred to judiciary should be Judiciary and Anti-Corruption Committee. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the seventh order of the day is the second reading of the Nigerian Assets Management Agency Establishment and Regulatory Bill 2017. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this chamber on Wednesday, 15th June 2016. Mr. President, you may wish to invite very distinguished Senator Mustafa Bakar to move the motion for the bill to be read a second time. And Mr. President, let me suggest that we can consolidate this bill with bill already taken, sponsored by Senator Mohammed Hassan. They look more or less the same.
Senator Bakar Mustafa.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. Let me start by thanking the leader for drawing the attention. In fact, I've just discussed with Mohammed Hassan that the bills look similar and they have to be, consolidated. But let me first start by saying that his own bill is actually dealing with crime proceeds. My own bill is talking about the general assets of the federal government, whether seized, forfeited, or whatever. The bill was read for the first time on the floor of the Senate on the 15th of June 2016, and seeks to address a serious threat to the economy by providing consultative and managerial services agency, law enforcement agencies in relation to property seized or restrained in connection with designated criminal offenses, thereby stifling endemic corruption, which is one of the top priorities of this administration. This is in line with international best practices. For example, in the United States, seizure and disposal of property is covered by the Department of Justice operatives, while in Canada, the Seized Property Management Directorate performs a variety of functions which include taking possession and control of the reported seized asset or manages the restrained property in accordance with that order. Hence, the need for a similar law to be enacted by this hallowed chamber in the form of this bill to strengthen our democracy and stem corrupt practices within the polity. This is in view of the very recent happenings in the country that relate to forfeiture in courts and seizures, takeovers conducted by personnel of the EFCC, ICPC, which include properties worth billions from individuals across the country. The main objective of the bill are: it will provide powers to the Public Asset Management Agency to monitor the acquired and seized assets by federal government agencies being kept within their domain without necessary maintenance to keep the asset. Because you see all these assets that have been forfeited, depleted, some of them actually misused. And the bill will provide the agency with a central management platform that will keep an accurate data and inventory of all the assets acquired, seized, taken over, or forfeited by the federal government agencies in or outside the country. It will also provide the agency with all the necessary procedures to be taken to guard against vandalization, conversion of the asset for personal use, and the benefits by the officials under whose custody these assets are. The bill will provide a mechanism whereby all monies accruing to the agency are deposited in the Federation account. The bill contains 37 clauses, and in compliance with Order 77.3 of the Standing Orders of the Senate, the compendium for this bill is attached. The bill is therefore an important legislation that seeks to curb corruption and corrupt practices in the country, which in turn will give the nation a boost as a nation fighting against corruption. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, your support for the passage of this bill for the second reading is very important. Just recently, the Ministry of Finance has created a desk that will try to coordinate, the list of the asset of the federal government, so that the federal government will have an idea of what asset it actually has. Because as it is now, nobody seems to know really what assets the federal government has, its condition, and how these assets are being managed. So I wish to request for the support of this Hallowed Chamber for the passage of this bill for the second reading. Thank you, Asum.
Senator Lidani.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Joshua Lidani. I represent from the South. I rise to commend the sponsor of this bill, Senator Mustafa Bakar, which is similar to the one that we have passed earlier. But the main difference, like you pointed out, is that This one includes every other asset, whether from proceeds of crime or not. But the important thing that we need to look at in this bill is the fact that before a case is eventually disposed of, there is a need for interim preservation of the property, which is the proceeds of the crime, before the case is eventually determined. But what we have now is a situation where properties are seized and then they are kept wasting away. Sometimes they decay, sometimes they get lost, sometimes they are pilfered, sometimes they are cannibalized. By the time the case is disposed of, the property would have lost its value. If the person is convicted, the state will not gain much from the value of the property. If he is discharged and acquitted, he will not recover the value of the property that was initially seized from him. So both ways, the state is losing, the victim too is losing. And therefore, there is a need for interim preservation of this property, so that the property is kept. And also, even if it's not only for preservation, it could be used to generate income. If houses are seized, for example, they could be rented out to people. People will be paying, and the money will be deposited with the federal government. Eventually, when the case is disposed of, if he waits, then he takes back his rent. If not, it's forfeited to the federal government. So I think this bill is very important. We need to have an organization that will be devoted for this kind of purpose. I support the bill and I ask my colleagues to do so. Thank you.
Distinguished colleagues, I think clearly this bill and the bill of the earlier procedure